Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Death Session. Already out the gate with a foul tip. Death Session 61. 61 being a kind of a nebulous number, but not nebulous, but nondescript. Nothing I can associate with it. I love when people remind me I missed the 58, a famous 58. 58 episode. I said, I know there's a linebacker I'm blanking on, and it was Jack Lambert. And I don't know if 58 episode was where I was making fun of the Pittsburgh accent, so it was really messed up that I missed it. It also would have provided me the opportunity to shout out Iron City Light. Iron City is a local beer in Pittsburgh. Orange City is how they'd say it, and I don't know if it's still the case, but maybe it was a special edition. But I remember being at a party in college drinking Iron City Icy Light, I think, or Iron City, and they had a biography of a Steeler or a Stiller on the can, and I spent most of the party drinking copious beers and memorizing the biography of Jack Lambert, All-American. I'm blanking on all the details. All-American from Ohio State, maybe? I don't know. Penn State, maybe? I don't know. Linebacker U? I don't know. It's all gone. But anyway, that would be the anecdote for a past episode. So let's move on to 61. See what I mean about 61 and certain milestones. And I think the what 61 for this episode will symbolize is next episode. Showing up. And I guess that's the thing. Next, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. Like, there's a next. This has been helpful because I know my issue with not what's, people are flummoxed sometimes. I certainly am as of late about what's next. My issue is can next. And that's a troubling thing because that is I don't know what's next. I don't know what to do next. I don't know, if next, so what's next is a better way to frame it. And sure as shitting, there will be things to do. Things will come up. And that's my thing is I am definitely at a pivot point. But I don't know which direction to go. Mr. Pettis Norman recently passed. He was a smart man, wise man. He said if you don't have a plan, then you won't know where you're headed. And, with a plan is very important. And I'm butchering his quote because he had that thing locked because he was a man with a plan. And, I have ideas for a plan. Obviously, the one-man show is a plan, but it requires some assistance, and that's the issue. The other thing Mr. Norman would say is don't get involved in any deal you can't control. And I guess that would be recoined today as leverage, and it's hard to figure out what you have to leverage. And as I do an inventory, I'm coming up a little short, and I don't want to be a woe is me episode, and I don't want to spiral downward. I am just saying that next. And so what is next? I will loop it back into the one-man show. The return of Otis Redding. I think a lot depends on no romance without finance. So it is eggs in all one basket that I am waiting on a reply from this theater company. That can't be a plan, but the reason that is the heavy favorite for the process is that it will be their production budget applied to my show. And I'm trying to enact that axiom of, don't spend your own money on creative projects, try to raise it, and so that this would be a version of that. And that is more for practical concerns because I am not sure what my work future is, so I don't know what's next. And that's okay. I also have to be aware of answered prayers that I am choosing to ignore. In the bar business, the holidays for me, on top of already being fraught, all holidays, it's especially fraught and tough for the holidays in that industry, especially with family far flung and that dislocation, and then working on these big nights, Christmas Eve, things like that. I was lucky in my early days, Christmas Eve, living in the city and working in the city, and having grown up outside of the city. My dad commuted every day to the New York Times from New Jersey, so it was no thing. And so if I had to draw the short straw and work that Christmas Eve, it was no thing for him to shoot into the city and pick me up and bring me home. And that's just not the possibilities these days. And if you have ambivalent feelings about the holidays where you are, it's a moody time for a lot of people. So the answered prayer was, I don't want to do another tour in the restaurant business over the holidays. And I just, wanted to obliterate the time between Thanksgiving and New Year's as like just carve it out. And as I've began to heal and I still have physical therapy and things, it looks like I'm going to be able to bypass that. And so instead of I can't walk both sides of the street at the same time. So I can't be melancholic about my future and about the holidays when I said standing in a puddle of water, knocking out fucking drink tickets last Christmas Eve when I wasn't even scheduled. I got called in and we got obliterated. And I was sitting there like saying never again. I've said that for many, many, many years. And unless something drastic happens, it looks like I'm able to cruise through that this year, and that should be a welcome respite and an answered prayer. But of course, my reflexes, my conditioning, the way I am functioning, I am prone to go half empty again, and to think, oh shit, be careful what you ask for, And so I am going to have to carve a new path, something next. And with the show, one thing that I think would be a smart move, and I'm doing it now, and one thing that was really helpful doing the reading of the show, was that it's a similar thing I did to pass a real estate exam. And, the idea is practice tests. I called the company that was the software for the real estate exam. I did all the courses, and I was doing a practice exam, and I wanted to accelerate. I really wanted to accelerate, and I wasn't able to because it takes a minute to get all this stuff lined up. Even once you've passed everything, you still have to take the proctored exam, and that one you don't want to fail because it's a nightmare to go through all that shit again. So I called the software customer service, and I said, hey, I took a practice exam and I got like a 72 or some shit, which is just passing. And I said, am I ready to take the test? And she said, oh no, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And I said, oh, okay, but I passed. And she goes, yeah, but that's at a margin that you will lose some ground on. The test is more challenging. And I would suggest, and she made a great suggestion, that you start taking tests, and when you're in the 90s, catching 90s every time you finish, that's when you'll be ready to take the test. So That's what I did. And I think I did 25 practice exams until I was cruising into high 90s. Mid 90s was the only, and then that made me prepared. And so what I'm trying to do is over-prepare. I over-prepared for the reading. I obviously wasn't going to be off book, but I was so familiar with the material and the shape of it. And what really helps that is the daunting task of memorization for, I would imagine, lawyers, doctors, people who have to really just rote memorize data. And maybe any memorization is probably better with a map or I've heard people call it use a library type of mnemonic, or memory palace is what I've heard people call it, a memory palace. But I was definitely reading. I had the script. I was reliant on the text, but I had my head up a lot, and I knew what was coming next in the words, but also the rehearsal to do the sound cues and to understand that, and to do there's a recurrent theme with drinking shots. And so all of that gives you this sort of sense of shape, a sense of, it's not just memorizing text. It's not pure data that you're memorizing. You're memorizing flow, feel, moments. You know where you are in the moment. If you had to paraphrase, if the whole thing if the power went out and I couldn't see, I could tell you the stories in the dark. And so that was what made it a little bit better. I was also nervous. I was also concerned about wasting people's time. So I was reading at a different clip than I will ultimately perform it. And so now that I had that big boost of confidence, that this story was interesting and captivating to the degree that 8 people in a room didn't rebel against me and didn't jet and had lunch with me afterwards. All of that puts some wind in my sails. So I know that I can, I think, always use cadence, pace, but there is room to breathe and room to pause and room to, let it lay. But since I don't have a date on the horizon, yesterday or day before, I was in an effort to just ditch the phone and get the fuck out of my algorithmic malaise, and for just a way to fight the blues, I said, let me just fucking do a read through out loud alone, which is tree falls in a forest kind of thing, but eventually that's going to be the process of learning it. And why not start now? Why not start getting the 90s on the practice exam now? Why not eliminate the toxin of doubt and eliminate the toxin of fear, neurotoxin, because it's literally, those things will shut your nervous system down. Those man-made emotional triggered toxins will shut the body down. I'm fairly certain there is a mind-body connection to fears and anxieties and things that will shut your body down. So that's the plan, is to kind of read it and have no agenda but to familiarize myself with it. But what happens is, as I've put it away after the reading, which, if I remember correctly, was I'm blanking on how long ago that was. I think it was June or July, perhaps. Maybe before, but it was months ago, and I sort of shelved it. It's sort of Stephen King talks about his writing process, where he sprints to a final first draft. Like, he sprints to the first draft is a sprint, and I know exactly why now, having had interrupted starts and stops. The first draft is a sprint. So then he puts it away. I think he might even put it away for a month or 90 days because he's always got shit going on. But and he literally puts it in a drawer, and then he doesn't even think about it, and then he pulls it out, gives it another read, and then that's a pass. And then I think at that point he lets people read it. But if you're talking about a spoken word thing or a play, I've put it away because I've done the first reading and I've had to conceptualize enough to pitch it to this theater company. And again, I have to be prepared for deafening silence. I don't even think that they will say thanks, but no thanks. So, and who knows? And I don't know what next steps will be. I'm sure the idea of sinking, multiple thousands of dollars at this point doesn't seem practical, but I think the horizon of if I get lucky enough to perform it in LA and set up August 26 Edinburgh, that would be just something that would be spectacular to do in my life one time. And who knows what happens then. But what happens is as you read something you haven't looked at for a while, and this goes back to what's next, is I think this is a locked picture. The only thing I would probably change would be cuts and or syntax and or brevity. And the only thing that has to happen now is to memorize the piece on its feet, work the moments, and to get the technical stuff together, the sound design and the audio visual elements and maybe the stagecraft, which previously I was going to gin up a lot more theatricality to make it more theatrical and less stand-up comedy. And now I am revising that notion. I think, yes, I'll be allowed to use a couple of props and a couple of theatrical light and some conceits. I think I should be entitled to that. But it has to be very basic so that it is achievable. Prop is achievable and portable, and to be able to perform in spaces that aren't as well equipped. And to bulletproof the text would be, can it stand on its own? Can the actor, can the one lone performer do all the heavy lifting? And that is a more pure stand-up experience or one-man show or whatever you want to call it. But to take away some of that stuff. So as I was reading it, I'm like, these are all pretty vivid. And I am a handsy guy. Referencing, I was very loose in the reading because some of the people in the room for the reading were in the stories, and it was a good flow of when I got to that point, I was finally relaxed enough to be, I refer to you, got an extra laugh, that was me, the elbow to the person they were sitting next to me, he's talking about me, that whole thing was available to me, and so it has to be available to you. Those people won't be out on the road and hopefully in Edinburgh, but like that's the moments of relaxation, clarity, but also the reference that right there, and that's the stuff you learn about theatricality. That gesture, this to a person with a moment and silence. That arm extended is as vivid and as important as a prop, as a light, as a sound cue, if you do it right. And so the idea of keeping it moving, pausing, using gestures, that kind of thing, that's what I can't wait to really dig into and flesh out. But I've noticed this with my book. I did a lot of things right, and I did a lot of things wrong. One of the wrong things I did was I just didn't. I think it was just so long ago that audiobooks were locked into. I don't know if I'm right about this, but audiobooks were more of, you publish the book in its text. But I don't know if Audible was as prevalent at the time. It may have been, but I thought it was more of a closed system where I remember Campbell Scott, George C. Scott's son, an actor, a well-known actor. He was had a big thriving audio book. He was like the name brand, as read by, and it was sort of that thing for the audio books. But I kind of missed an opportunity to read my own audiobook, but I just didn't have the technology and the know-it-all, and I can't get perfect silence in my apartment. So it was a lost opportunity. And then in having this mic, having this equipment now for voiceover stuff, it's possible, but I can't kind of bear the psychology of where the person who wrote that was at the time. It's no longer true, meant much of it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's okay as an artifact. It's okay as a testament of where I was at the time. And the idea of what's next is I have moved on. And so I understand now why Stephen King talks about the first draft being a sprint. And now as I'm getting ready to perform it, I am getting at the, and this is also where the divine spark, what they talk about, the divine spark of inspiration, for a muse of fire, that when you hear about songs being written in a minute, or in a, I woke up and I just had this melody and I went out to the living room and I plunked it out, those things, in those short type of art moments, an improvisation. Are you talking to me on film? I'm walking here. Those are all inspirational moments outside of the text. A song can come like that, quote unquote, write itself. And so to some degree that happens when I was writing. I was working around a few set pieces, but as I was writing faster through to the finish, things did kind of, quote unquote, come to me. But now it needs to be performed. And as I was reading it, it's starting to, ideas come and go in there. If you believe in the collective unconscious notion of things, or parallel thinking, it's like sometimes you lose the uniqueness of your thing by vacillating, by procrastinating. And so if the continuum and the prayer that I am putting out to have this be a continuum, so the last the return of Otis Redding is in process, and it will be completed with a performance. But what will be next would be, boom, something else, and maybe another one. But so I have to start writing again, and maybe have a project in process while one is on its way to being performed. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that will put some of the melancholy on the back burner, because I'm not polishing. I am trying to excavate through the iron to get through the next tunnel. You got to blast through a wall and find, gold again. And so hopefully the return of Otis Redding is we got to cash in. We mined that out. We got some, we got some ore, we got some iron ore. And now that tunnel has been excavated, I think is the word, right? Excavated. So now we have to blow through a wall and do another one. And if dreams came true, and if I can spend hopefully the next 5-6 years of my life, maybe 10, get a good run where my counteraction to my AI anxiety and the collapse of my industry and all those sort of hopes and dreams of an analog world that I grew up in are things of the past. A few things may remain, i.e. a live performance, an event of, if you do it right, even if it's a one-man show, and if it's funny enough, but also got a little bit of a theme. You can imagine it, touring vineyards, an evening with this kind of thing. And, you could see people clamoring, because I do know that it's very hard to get there, and the same 15 people are in the movies now. But back to the Bruce thing is, it was a freebie. It was on the lot. There was going to be celebrities there, but it was a great feeling for the room to be full and to be quiet and to have laughs And, some of the things that make theater going unbearable, i.e. other people, I think that is the prevailing emotion about going out of the house. But I don't know if that has been engineered into us or... So yeah, nobody had their cell phones out because it was a room full of SAG actors, so they're going to be reverent to it. But one dude couldn't shut the fuck up. And I had that experience and still enjoyed the movie too, And I think that's the problem with what's coming down the pike is, yeah, you can have symmetrical features and you can fill in, you can make your face plastic, and AI can smooth out all the edges and all the, the ideas, smooth out all the imperfections. But I still enjoyed the movie, and there was that annoying fucking dude. And I think if you try to take out all those friction points, sure, it's not ideal. I'd be better if he shut the fuck up. And I can't make that a positive. But at the same time, it's... If you grew up on the East Coast, especially in New York or New Jersey, the pizza is my favorite kinds of crusts. Have the bubbles and the burns and the dark spots and a real crispy crust. And I think at like Domino's or some of these generic chain pizza places, they throw out pizzas with the bubbles. They want a uniform crust, and it's like, nah, man, you want those bubbles, right? And so like that guy talking in the theater is a bubble. Because it's like you get to tell the story of this movie was really good and there was this fucking guy who wouldn't shut the fuck up. It's an imperfection. And so as best I can, I think, is to hope, which is a tough word. It's all I got sometimes. I have to have a plan. And I have to be able to enact it, and I got to think about what's next. And... some of those things that are next in your life aren't always the good stuff, that stuff will come to pass. That stuff has come to pass, but I think next scares the living daylights out of me, and so I have to work on because the unknown is I've gotten too used to the drone and the hum, of the having everything the same was a comfort to me, And they say do something that scares you every day, and it's like, does that mean go left instead of right on your way to work, park in a different spot? That's not enough, And I was at that point where I'm like, okay, should I come up and around? Should I go box left? Should I park here? I started backing into spots, like dumb little tweaks so that I wouldn't feel like a robot, and in a bar job, the drudgery is the same, but the variables are the things that change, the customers. But then even, some of the same people would come in, and it wasn't quite factory monotony, but it was interpersonal monotony, and that was tough to take, and I am now figuring out what's next, and people say, it's easy to relocate to another city if it's for Saturday Night Live, or you're on Boston Blue, but how do you make the change in your locality, in your spirit? How do you actually cleave your intentions and take away some of your doubts and fears? That kind of change, the kind of change that may be invisible, that people won't notice except your intimates. And some people might not like the change. And that's these are all the options, right? And so 61, I don't know that I've droned on long enough. I feel think about trying to put the 40-second, 30-second clip out of this Joker That's going to be a challenge, I can tell from the way this one went. But and I do have to regulate calorie intake when I encounter what I can get done. This intermittent fasting is like probably not the time. I'm not doing that, but I don't eat a lot until a certain point. It does leave you short of energy. And again, we've discussed that this forward presenting is at minimum needs a high energy motor. You know what I mean? When things fall flat, it's not that you weren't dancing around, because you can dance around and not have the divine spark, if you will. But the divine spark also needs energy. It needs fuel. And so things will fall flat. People will die. A director will say, can we do it again? There's something. That's what they're really missing. They're missing the divine spark, the thing. And the AI stuff, the image generating is, I'm fooled. I see a fucking wolf, some dude petting a wolf and throwing a tennis ball to a wolf, and I'm literally believing this is a tamed wolf, man. But it's not. It's AI, and it's so good. It does fake you out. But I think I'm praying that the long form narrative, the divine spark, the bubbles on the crust, the burnt edges, the guy running his mouth behind you every time there's a data point he wants to share about Springsteen. Oh, this is where he's about to sing the Highway Patrolman. I'm like, I know, dude. We all know, dude. And I can even get uptight and ramped up about this guy who wouldn't shut the fuck up behind me in the movie theater and still tell you that I had a great experience. So to speak metaphorically or to speak artistically about life and put the seasoning of observation onto it. Life is that, right? You have to be able to still enjoy things. There's probably some laughs in prison camp. That's the problem. And what becomes a problem for me is a rumination, right? They talk about ruminating and being low mood because of just sitting there thinking about it. That's forcing that's staying in a past moment, And yeah, if you ask somebody in a POW camp, was it miserable? He would say yes. Every day was miserable, but there maybe if there were a couple of and that's the hardest thing to understand. That and you don't want to do that to yourself. But I'm the kind of guy that my girlfriend will make me laugh, and she goes, "It's good to see you laughing." And the minute she brings it up, I'm like, I'm like, don't notice me enjoying life. I want to stay here. This is what I understand. You know what I mean? And to the point where she's singing "If You're Happy and You Know It," and she's got me clapping my fucking hands, because it gets dark, and I don't want to live there anymore. And it does taint the music, if you will, to go back to the Springsteen thing. And I think that was a big point of the movie. And I read an Atlantic article, not to name check that or name drop that, but I was correct, but I had the wrong phraseology. There is a line in the trailer where the Jeremy Strong character says Bruce needs to repair his floor or some shit like that. I don't know. Repair was the word, and then when he's done, he's gonna repair the word. I was paraphrasing, but the Atlantic article also noted that there was a line, and he said that was mercifully and rightly edited out of the final cut, and maybe I agree, but that, because that was a bit heavy-handed, but it did make the trailer and didn't make the final cut. So cool, man. I fucking peep that, and I pay attention, and I got to remember that paying attention thing may be one of my superpowers. Noticing things, remembering things, while I still got my marbles. I got to figure out a way to sort of capitalize on what might be working for me. So thanks for letting me get through this episode 61, the nebulous, undemarcated numeral, nothing quote unquote special. I joked about it being like, when you're an 11, 12, 13-year-old boy of 14, it's just like you're a freshman, all of your girls are going out with older guys, you're just goofy, even your folks are like, why is this guy here? You know what I'm saying? And I think 61 is sort of that kind of gray area of any kind of it's still a D, so you're not passing, you know what I mean? It's just so I don't want to ever take for granted what I sit down to do, and any attempts at phoning them in would be a poor use of my time and yours. So they may be low mood, low energy, or discussing things without a sunny thing, but that's still progress. That's the as long as you don't go back, still 4 inch by inch, and pounding on that wall with the pickaxe to get through to the other side. I gotta hope that's the way this is headed. There's a bleak line in One Step Up, Two Steps Back by Bruce, that or is it God have mercy on a man who doubts what he's sure of. Is that a Tunnel of Love? I don't know. It's on the Tunnel of Love album, I'm pretty sure. And so yeah, that's kind of if this will be a through line, if we get through to 100 to 200 to thousands of these, 500 of these, it's okay to have the sausage being made occasionally is a good thing to see. And so that today was one of those days where I had to manufacture a run, to use a World Series reference or analogy. I got to manufacture a run. I'm like dragging a bunt right now, trying to get on base. I'm trying to lean into an inside pitch, get on base, Don Baylor style. There you go, for all the older baseball fucking fans. Don Baylor, the king of letting the ball hit him because he was tough as nails and a good Yankee. So anyway, that's how we're going to wrap it up. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can strive to survive and thrive, more importantly. So, peace, and I'll talk to you next time. Death Session 61.